Right, we have a really exciting podcast today. This is going to be a lot of fun with Mr. Chris O'Connor, Mr. James Rink. And Chris, you are the developer and the manufacturer of a really amazing device called the Deems Device. It's been out there. James it has it, and James has used it extensively. And it has sort of a out of this world background, which is actually fascinating that we can delve into. So, with that being said, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Maybe you could give us a little bit of information about your background and how this device came about, and learn a little bit about you and the company.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here, guys. It's great to be here with you. But it's an interesting story where the Deems came from. What people don't always understand is that we have sometimes multiple lifetimes, and well, I mean, other than just one lifetime and then reincarnating, sometimes we have parallel lifetimes, and that's something that I experienced. And through that experience, I worked with, um, like James well knows, the secret space program for quite a number of years. And part of what I did with them was I worked on technologies that were much more advanced than ours. And the ironic thing is they're always much more simple also. We complicate things here as human beings. So the Deems device is one of the things that we used. It wasn't called the Deems. Um, I don't remember what it was called, to be honest, but I would use that. And their version of it, the space program's version of it, does a very different thing than what the one I built does. And their version, theirs are electronic. Um, so mine, basically, it's got magnets. So it's like 13 magnets in series here. Okay. And then this ring is also a magnet. And so as the energy goes around, because they're in series, it creates a magnetic field and it comes around. And as it comes around, this one is magnetized, called axially, so it pushes it. So when the energy comes up and around, it's pushed out at the same time. So it creates a vortex. And
Wow.
that vortex is what can penetrate your body. So that's what mine does. Mine is made and built for pain relief, anti-inflammation, and a bunch of things like that. But I used these. Of course, the one I had, it looks like James version is, which is this version. Um, that's the one I remember from working in the space program. I remember it because they used it on me, and I remember it because I used it on other people because that was one of my jobs. And what theirs is electronic. So on the bottom of it, there was like this little space that you put like you plug something in, right? To charge it. Because theirs is battery operated. And mine is magnetic, so you don't need batteries. But theirs is programmable. There's computer chips and things in it. So what people could kind of relate to is our pineal gland has calcite crystals in it. It's a natural thing. You want them. They're good for you. And it's under hydraulic pressure from the CSF fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid. And when it puts it under pressure, when you put a crystal, calcite, quartz, which they're very similar, under pressure, it creates piezoelectric energy.
Hmm.
It's like if you get a quartz crystal and you like smash it with a hammer or something, you'll see a spark of electricity, and that's what quartz watches are and
Yeah,
all of
the
that stuff.
vibration.
Yeah. So it creates electrical energy to run your device. Well, your brain does the same thing, and that's the electrical energy that's in your nervous system. So, so the Deems also creates a piezoelectric energy, and I'll show you that actually. So normally this wants to ride like this, okay? Because this is what you see a chip on it. Because I keep dropping this when I show people. But um, so this is how the magnetic field wants to keep this because it's a different polarization than the handle. So I twist it and place it in like that. And what that does, also creates piezoelectric energy. So the two ways to create a natural piezoelectric energy are to put pressure on a quartz or some other types of crystal, or put pressure on magnets. So like you
Magnetic
put two north sides together, you push it
field.
together, then it sparks electricity. And so this is a very natural way of doing it. Theirs that I used originally were charged, so you had false electrical in it, but they also use theirs to um, erase your memory, and that's how that's how they did that, because they well, memory is just based on your DNA, but it's connected to the pineal gland and your frequency. Everybody has a slightly different frequency to their pineal gland, and that makes you unique, just like your fingerprints. And when you're in the program off planet, they know your frequency. So they'll program their DEEMs or their device to your frequency. And so if they want to erase your memory, or they can actually also transfer your consciousness, but generally only to a copied body of you. They have to have the same DNA. So for them to do that, what they do is they program it that you come into a room and you're sitting on a cold stainless steel table. They program the computer to program this. Theirs has a little button on the backside. And the little red dot is just because that's where the vortex comes out. So just so you know what side. So with theirs, they because the little signal, the vibration that your pineal gland puts out to your nervous system and it runs your brain, that's the electricity of your body. So that's a frequency. So when they know your frequency, they'll program this and then they'll push this button on the back. And suddenly that same exact frequency is being emitted by their device. And it's stronger than your pineal gland, so they can pull out your consciousness. And with consciousness comes the soul, and everything's all attached. And then they can put it in another body. And they've done that to save lives many times. In fact, they did it to save my life. And so kind of mind blowing, I know. But that's the origin of this device. And when I went to renegotiate my contract to renew and do another 20 years with them, part of what it wasn't a demand, it was a negotiation, was that I wanted to have permission to release this to the public. But my version of it, the version that I knew that the ancient Egyptians used, it's similar. It's fashioned partially after the Ankh and also the Baghdad battery, which were two ancient devices that relieved pain and helped healing and created energy, and they would have light in the dark. But I wanted to basically not get in trouble for building these things when I, came back. So they agreed, and that's why I started building it.
Really
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so
Really
that's the
amazing.
origin of it.
Yeah,
Mr. Rink, sir, would you
yeah. Well,
like to comment?
they the SSP people can agree, but that doesn't mean they'll hold their commitments. But I'm grateful they are for you, Chris. So hey, Corey Good described this hammer device, which Ashton Neusler called the shock hammer. So it's a device that has a crystal in it. It looks like a hammer, but it touches your pineal gland and makes you forget your memories of your service. So what Oksana Buchanan described was that there was electrical current in the room and you would get electrocuted from it, but the nurse or whatever orderlies there would have rubber shoes on so they wouldn't get electrocuted. Do you know anything about the shock hammer, Chris? Have you heard about this device?
I
You know?
definitely heard about the shock hammer. I was not privy to it. I never saw it. This is the only thing on that level that I saw. I saw a lot of other technology,
Yeah. Okay.
but not
So
that.
yeah, I
So,
was just wondering similar
yeah.
modalities.
So,
Okay.
so Chris, number one, thank you so much for coming on today because We get to learn a lot on this channel. This channel is really getting some great guests, you being one of them. And you and James have both been in these sort of off-planet programs. And I think the general public now, with a lot of stuff with disclosure, is starting to open up, and a lot of that's starting to come out. With that technology that you developed, and with James have using it, and how long is it? How long have you been making that device for now?
About maybe 5 years.
5 years, right. And now I know you've got a lot of testimonials. We talked about that on a previous time when I spoke to you. For somebody that's out there that's watching it, that's looking at the device, what are some of the primary ways that people are using it? What are some of the primary benefits? Like we're talking pain relief in that, but like for knees, joints, like maybe you could give us an idea of, some of the people that are using the device and some of the benefits that are coming from it.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It amazed me the first year or two, and it still does, what people are doing and how they're using these devices, ways I just thought pain relief, anti-inflammation, and because you can get all this, the government, federal government on the National Institute of Health and the Library of Medicine, you can go on there and search, and they say themselves that neodymium magnets actually, well, in their verbiage, if they use it, what they call intrabuccally, which is mainly, you're putting on your cheek, and if you hold it there for a while, there are certain cancers that it cures. I don't, that's not my claim, but it's written on the websites. And so I was doing all this research and how it relieved pain, and all the neodymium magnets are just kind of like a miracle thing. And so I'm like, why, that's remarkable. Nobody else is doing it. So, so anyway, I got a little distracted, but I've had customers like this one particular woman. There's so many, I got to pull one in. Oh, she was, I guess, in her 60s or so, and she had really bad hips, and she had to stop working. She was cleaned homes for a living, and she had to stop. And so I had a friend in Florida, gave her the device, and she was telling her about it. And so she sat for half an hour with the Deems on one of her hips, and sat for half an hour with the Deems on their other hip. And she got up and she started walking. Not that she walking without pain is the difference. And she sends me this email and tells me that she's able to go back to work now, and how happy she is. And thank you very much for inventing it. And I'm like, well, I didn't invent it, but you're welcome. And there's a woman that uses it in Los Angeles area. She's a holistic vet, and she travels and she goes to people's homes, and she uses it for pain relief for animals. One woman uses it on her horses. A lot of people use it for arthritis, structural pain. It's really, really good for that. I have nerve damage from body injuries. I'll put it down. I had neuropathy, and it really helps that as well. I mean, it's just, I can't even describe all the things that it does, but what it is, it's a natural, the body's already using this same electrical impulses because your brain's creating it, but we don't have enough. See, we're not grounding to the earth like we used to. Animals heal the way they heal and as quickly as they heal because they're grounded to the earth, you know, constantly connected to it, but we're not. We're wearing shoes and in homes and in cars. So the Deems, what it does is it just amplifies the energy, that the same energy if you were grounding to the earth, because it helps. Basically, if you have a pump or a magnet, you're constantly drawing energy from the earth up into your body. That's just the natural process, and that's how we heal, is through that energy transfer. That's the energy the body uses to heal itself. This just amplifies the amount of energy we pull in if we were grounding. So there's a couple examples for you.
Really, it like focuses it into a very, very small area, and,
Yeah.
and stimulates it. And it's interesting because you had it up to your mouth, and I know a lot of people that we work with have issues with mouth, teeth, and gums. And Chris, one of the things we talk about on the channel is that it's always nice to have a device like that just to keep everything in motion, right? And not even worry about stuff really breaking down. If you already know that you've had knee issues in the past, just having something like that that you can use for 5 to 10 minutes on each knee just to keep everything in good working order in a prevention modality, especially with, like your mouth and dental and different parts of the body, I would say that that would also have a lot of benefit as just a regular protocol to have something like that on a nightstand or something where you can actually use it and just keep it on the knees or the hips. You're talking about the lady with the hips because you get that kind of result. It's like, what more can I do and just keep that energy flow going?
Yeah. Well, here's a cute story. This is one of my favorite little stories. There are these ladies in Dallas, Texas, and they're older women, and they have a quilting circle. So this one lady saw one of my videos or whatever, and so she ordered a Deems. And so she had arthritis, she was in her 80s. And she said it just took the pain away immediately in her hands when she was working. So she took it to the quilting circle and she shared it. And then two or three others bought one. And so now I have this vision of these beautiful older ladies in a quilting circle with this weird device. Just it's a funny visual that I carry with me, and I love that.
Well, when you hear a story like that and you know that you've done some real good and people like these ladies have really gotten benefit out of it and continue to, it makes the whole journey worthwhile, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's like, what, if I could just do one thing and make one person happy, and then you've got all these testimonials and you've got that one group of women who obviously are getting a better quality of life and they're doing what they love to do and being able to share that together, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of
So
my favorites.
my my dad broke his hip back in August, so I put this thing in his wheelchair. So now he is walking around with a cane. So he was in tremendous amount of pain, and something like this could be very beneficial for somebody, yeah, that is incapacitated or in a wheelchair. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, and not taking drugs if you don't have to, you know. I believe in doing what you have to do to survive, but if you can get, by with not taking a drug, that's awfully nice.
I love that. And I'm just wondering, the piezo field and the way that works, it's sending that centripetal or that spiral, a vector of energy inwards. Just out of curiosity, a lot of the technology that we work with that has not that exact type of thing, but usually, it penetrates, I would say, at least 5, 6 inches into the body. So you can also use it, to help stimulate and send energy to internal organs. And, I know we've talked on other technologies, but this seems to be very powerful. I love the fact it's not electrical, it's running on magnets. But this seems like something that if you had chest congestion or a sore throat or even some of those things or different ailments internally that you could kind of use that to stimulate and send energy into those parts of the body to sort of stimulate them.
Yeah, the more of that energy you're sending to whatever part of your body. I mean, just holding it, you're pulling in a lot more energy just because it's like, it's constantly working, constantly pulling energy out, right? So if you're holding it, energy is going to be pulled in from your feet and from your left side. Generally, that's how most people pull energy in.
Mhm.
And so it just amplifies what you're pulling in. So it cannot be a more natural healing. It just can't. But you mentioned different organs of the body. Anybody that's familiar with like the meridian points and acupressure, acupuncture, those points are based on vibration and frequency. And those relate to colors, and colors all connect to stones and stuff like that. So what I have is a set of stones also that if you wanted to focus a certain here, I've got one sitting here. Okay, this one is a lapis, lapis lazuli. So if you wanted to focus in certain areas, whether you're working on your energy system, the chakra system, this is the blue area of the body, and there's other parts of the body that relate to the blue stones. Then you just you just pop it on, and then you just hold it there. Now, what you do is if you put energy through a cone or a pyramid, you condense it to a point. Then it makes it more like a laser point or a little candle flame is what I like to envision. And then so you can target areas, more easily. So because they actually use these in the space program also, and so that's why I was open to, because what I learned is in the highest technology, the more advanced technology gets, the simpler it is. And I'm not 100% sure how that works, but it does. Um, and so basically everything I was introduced to at some level were magnets and crystals, engines that could take you across the solar system in moments. They have an engine that's built from magnets and crystals, different forms, different types, and this is basically magnets and crystals. All the high technology is the Ankh in ancient Egypt were magnets and crystals because inside of each of these are 8 carats of diamonds. They're micro diamonds, and diamonds help focus energy. And so as this thing is pulling energy, it's amplified, by crystals. So even without the crystal on it, you've got crystals in it working. So, and I know that sounds all woo and all, but fact is, it's true. I didn't used to believe it until I started this research, and then I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is actually real.
You know what's really cool is you brought up the Ankh, right, and the ancient Egyptians, and I
Oh,
work
yeah.
with
It's
uh, I,
Atlantean.
I work with Dan Winter, with technology, and he's got the dual tube plasma technology, and that's also inscribed in hieroglyphics. Can you touch on maybe some history of, the ancestral background of these civilizations? Because they were clearly very advanced civilizations. And, I think that there's maybe a lot of misconceptions about, maybe how highly advanced they really were. But, being that this is very similar to technology that's thousands of years old, it seems like it's kind of reestablishing itself.
Well, yeah, you kind of, to really truly understand some of our ancient human civilizations, you have to be completely unencumbered by your old thinking. And I say that in that we have been being visited by other races since 300 million years ago, long before we were here. And they've been repeating technology over and over and over. And so the Ankh, this is just basically the new version of the Ankh.
Hmm.
Well, that version of the Ankh was brought to them by another race, a number of races. And so it's not new technology. None of it is new. It's just being rebuilt and renewed. And so some of these ancient civilizations, they really everything they saw was miraculous because they didn't have all the science and they didn't have all the answers we have now. We don't have all the answers. We don't didn't have nearly as many as we have. So they saw a light in the sky, and that was a miracle to them. So they were open to that. So they literally had some of these races. Some of them landed physically on the planet and interacted with them and taught them how to use these type of things. And then other races, they weren't of the same, let's say, atmosphere or whatever, or density. So
Mhm.
they just projected themselves. In fact, this is an interesting point. If you notice in a lot of hieroglyphs, you see like bird-headed beings.
Yes.
Well, that was a race of beings that came to interact with humans to help teach them how to build the pyramids. And pyramids are meant to focus energy, like I just said a moment ago. And they were helping them do this. But because they were projecting themselves, and it requires a lot of mental energy to project yourself to another place, like a hologram, but it's done through the mind. It's not through technology so much. So they only projected themselves from like the waist up. So they didn't have legs. So a lot of these human bodies with animal heads are because that's all they could see. You know, not being able to see their arms or whatever, but they can mainly just see their head because that's the projection that they could do. So the Egyptians just drew a body. It's what they knew.
Mhm.
So that's why you see that in hieroglyphs.
I
You know,
love that. I love that, because when you're learning about the past, you're learning about the present, and this technology gets reintroduced again and again, and then it really opens you up to seeing the past in a much different light because you're going, all right, this was very highly civilized. We've talked on my channel many times before where there are structures right now that have been made that we still don't have the technology today to actually reproduce, like 60-ton stones perfectly laser carved, stacked on top of each other. Some of these are at elevations that are very high that you really couldn't even get cranes to. And, that whole mystery of, who did it and how did that get done? The sticks and stones theory of, rolling that stuff on a log, there's places where that just clearly is not possible. And then you get into anti-gravity and you start learning that, there was a lot of civilizations here prior that were highly advanced that really kind of helped push the development of our civilizations along.
Mm.
absolutely.
And yeah, some of those places where people could survive a pole shift. That's why I would like the entire planet would have been covered these structures, but we've been reset over and over again. But hopefully this time we won't see a pole shift, which I don't. I think on the positive timeline we won't. I have a question for Chris. So you showed a gold unit, and I have a silver unit. Can you tell people the difference between the different, or maybe the different type of units you have, or are they all gold now, Chris?
They're not all gold. That's an option. They're all the same. Now they all have 8 carats of diamond. So these two are really they're the same device. One is plated in 24 karat gold, and it's not because it's pretty. That's not why. Although it is. It's a gold is one of the minerals, one of the things in the whole of the universe that the human body can take in and it not really have too much of an adverse effect. Of course, I think at some point you took too much in, you'd probably find issues. But the frequency, the vibration that gold puts out, because everything is vibrating atoms, and so vibrating material, so it's everything's vibrating. So that vibration that gold puts out is highly compatible with the human body, most human bodies. So we have, say, if we have this one and you're using it, these are nickel plated, which most people, I think I've only ran into like 2 people that had an allergy to nickel, but it does happen. So all these are nickel plated, and the reason they're plated because under this is copper. Uh, it would be too strong without some coating on it. So that's why I plated in nickel. And then in gold, the gold version, because our bodies are so familiar with gold and get along with gold as well as they do, and it's the same frequency and vibration, very compatible, then as you're holding on to it, you're taking in the energy much more easily. And this one, if you can feel energy, if not everybody can feel energy, it's just they mistake some of what they feel in their body for something else. So, but if a person is highly sensitive to energy flow and they hold, like the nickel version and the gold version, almost every single person says the nickel version is is stronger, but in a more metallic way, and the gold isn't as strong, quite as strong, and the gold is stronger because they said it's much more gentle and their body's taking it in. It's funny because they almost everybody says that same thing, you know. And I feel the energy from the gold more around my head versus the nickel. I feel it lower in the body. I don't know exactly what that's about, but
Love that. So, Chris, you brought up a really good point about the meridians and the pressure points. And I know, like, if you're just using the device just, for maintenance or maintaining good health, I could see where it'd be really beneficial to put it over your hands, your hands, your ears, and the bottom of your feet, right? Or where you've got a lot of these pressure points and literally use that to send energy and send energy through those meridians, which is very much the same thing that you're doing with acupuncture, even acupressure, but with a device like that where you're sending actual energy through that. And with that being said, I could see how this device could be super fun for somebody that's massage therapist, Reiki, acupuncture. Like if you're seeing actual clients and you've got a technology like this where you can use the device for 5 or 10 minutes to start up to get that energy flowing, and maybe at the end to kind of move some of that energy through, or if there's blockages for these people, like you're saying, that are very sensitive to energy and they can feel a blockage, it's like, boom, let me grab that Deems. Let's just iron that patch out right there and do that. And I could really see that having a lot of value. And it's interesting that, I'm in the medical equipment industry, and I'm really starting to see a lot of doctors that are doing physical rehabilitation and pain med starting to embrace technologies like this and incorporating it in their practice, because ultimately, the more layers of technology or the more different things that you can do, the better the outcome is for the end user.
Yeah.
So, like, I just get your feedback. I know you've got a lot of customers out there, but
Yeah.
have you heard of any, those types of clients and, them? Yeah, all the time, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I have actually spoken to a couple of universities actually and met with neurologists and I did Deem sessions on them, and they're like, they walk out going, I'm not quite sure what just happened. And, because they feel a difference. It's something new to them, right? And then they turn right around and they buy them.
Yep.
I have another couple of doctors, but one in particular in Kentucky, amazing doctor, Dr. Jim Roche. He switched his whole third generation, whole medical practice to holistic healing, and including a pharmacy he owns. It's all holistic now. So he's doing amazing things. So yeah, and Reiki practitioners love the device because they're not having to use their own energy. They're pulling it in, the device is pulling it in. Their only complaint is it gets a little heavy, which I understand because I do, balancing sessions on people like with the acupuncture and acupressure. The only thing about acupuncture works. I've had it done and I didn't like it. I don't like it because I'm being poked with needles. I mean, who likes that? Um, so this kind of works in the same way. So you're actually penetrating the body, but
Right.
it's with vortex field.
Yeah.
So they really kind of do the same thing. I've been argued about, a couple of times with that, but
Yeah, well, with the device, like you said, you've really got like an energy field, a real nice big energy field that you can just apply and let that technology really move that energy through those meridians and through those different pressure points. So Chris, this is a fascinating. I'm so grateful, number one, for you to take the time. And I want to have sort of an ongoing thing with you on the technology. I think one last quick thing I'd like to just get to, and then James, if you have any questions, with the Deems device, you brought up the lapis, and you have some additional crystals that you can get that are like additional parts of a package. Is
yeah,
that is that like you could use that for like energizing chakras and like we've started off on the pineal, and obviously there's a lot of intuition and a lot of beautiful things that come from that. But is there maybe something that you would put that would stimulate the pineal, or what does some of the other
yeah.
attachments do, and
Funny,
what
I
is
just happened to pull that one out before you said that.
boom?
Amethyst, which you have behind you.
Yes.
Amethyst. So these all have little rings on the back, and I have to have these cut, and I haven't had any new ones cut, because there's some other related issues of having them shipped in. But I have several of these sets left, and these basically correlate to the primary energy centers of your body. The root chakra or the root chakra and the sacral and the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, pineal, or third eye, and the crown chakra. And that one's clear. So each one is a different type of hand cut crystal, and,
Beautiful. Those are
and it works with those parts of your body. So
beautiful.
if you mainly practitioners, of like Reiki or people that do the energy work, they're the ones more often than not that get these because they can hone in and work on a person more easily when you can focus in the energy. So
That is really some cutting edge stuff. I love that. That's like 21st century med kit. It's like, yeah, we got a block here in the root chakra. Let me go get let me go get the agate or whatever the stone is for that. Let's move that up and let's little weak here in your heart chakra. Let's get the rose quartz out and move
yeah.
that. That is really amazing. And Chris, the story, and I know for a lot of people out there, you're starting to hear this trickling out on other videos, but there's a lot of off-planet technology, a lot of off-planet programs. You've been blessed in some ways to have been in those programs, and obviously James has as well. And so to bring some of these technologies back to where we can get them out to everyday people is a real blessing for humanity. James, what I'm going to do is, Chris, I'm going to give you a last word. James, I'm going to give you a last word, and then we'll wrap up this
Well, wait,
call.
I got a question.
Yeah, so go
Okay,
ahead. Go ahead, James.
so Chris, much of the illness on this planet is a result of senescence, of just going through the process of aging. Now, at Montauk, there was a time trip where someone's chronometer got messed up. So that meant that the DNA is locked in to a certain time period. So theoretically, if we could just modify the chronometer to a different time, we could reverse age and maybe people could theoretically get better, younger, healthier. What are your thoughts about that, Chris? Can we modify the chronometer within our DNA, and how would that affect us?
Well, some of the technology that I was exposed to is they do just that. And they do that based on the DNA, the individual DNA. But DNA, you can look at it like a spiral antenna. You send in certain energies, and those DNA strands take in that energy and they adjust to that frequency, whatever the frequency might be. That's how a lot of disease happens, because they're getting a bad signal or something's wrong coming into them, and so they're taking that in and changing according to it, and then affecting cells. But yeah, there's what people don't understand about time is it's a wave, it's measurable, and if you know what the timestamp. So as this wave, just imagine as this wave's going through the universe, this massive wave of time, primarily it's more affecting like us here on Earth more than a lot of others. But just imagine if this wave of time is going through space, coming through Earth, that wave has slightly different frequencies as it's moving through space. And each time it goes up and down, it stamps. You can know when that, if you have a certain frequency, then what you can do is you can adjust technology to go to the frequency when that wave was coming through. And then if you can go to that, like you're saying, it's very similar to what you're saying, James. And if you can go to that, then that's also how they erase memory because they know the timestamps of the timeline wave. And then when you have those timestamps, you go into the brain and you delete those time periods between the stamps, say 8 a.m. one day and to 8 p.m. that evening. You just take out the whole block. You can't take out parts. From what I'm familiar with, you take out the whole thing. So that's how they take memory out also. So yeah, you
Wow,
can
Chris,
do
I have
that.
so many more questions, but I think we have to wrap up here, right, Sean?
Oh, we're good. If you got more questions, man, you keep going.
Okay. Well, I want Chris. Could you please tell people what projects you might be working on in the future, if you're at liberty to share?
Yeah, I've been working on. I don't like calling it a med bed because it gets kind of a crazy connotation, but I guess that is what it is. And it's working with a lot of what you said. It's using spinning high frequency magnetic fields, vibration, frequency, and sound, of course, through the frequencies. And I built one. I and another gentleman built one, and then we had it up and operating for a while, and we had quite a few people come in and do different tests, and it was pretty remarkable. One particular woman was in really bad pain in her shoulder. And she left here. It was months ago, and she updates me every few weeks and says, I'm still not in pain. I still have no pain, and so it really truly works. But that's also based on what you're talking about with the timestamp frequency, is that your body recognizes that. And then when it's flooded with energy, because I create like this magnetic piezoelectric bubble of energy around them. And then when you're in that field, your body's just like, oh, thank God. It's got all the energy it needs to heal itself, and it does it much more rapidly. So I'm working on that, but unfortunately, through some issues, I chose to dismantle it for now. And because I got some new guidance, sent in some new designs. So that's the next step. But yeah, working on that.
James, that was a great question. And Chris, you keep us posted on that. And when you're ready to talk about that in the future, whenever it is, let us know because we do delve into a lot to the medbed subject here. So that's always great information. And I really love, with your background and a lot of what we talk about, you've really had some good insight to where the future goes with a lot of technology. And I find it fascinating that the more advanced it gets, the more simplistic it gets, which technically really makes a lot of sense. But people want to hear all this garby garb about all these, like technical terms and all that. But when you really simplify it into a very basic format, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the one thing I learned. I always kept with me was, wow, we make things complicated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So,
but
James, if it's okay with you, I want to give you a last word or ask any other questions. And then, Chris, I'll let you finish up, wrap it up, and then we're going to promote the website. In fact, let's just say right now, what is the web address for the Deems device?
yeah, just deemscompany.com, Deems company.com. That'll send you to another one, but it's the same company, it's all me. So yeah, just deemscompany.com is all you need to
What I'm
go.
going to do for everybody out there watching, although you can't see it on this call, right to the left of James, I'm going to just put your contact information, your email, and the web address so people can ask questions if they have questions, or they can just go right online to order. And James, you go ahead. Do you have any additional questions or any final thoughts?
October 8th to the 12th, 2025, you can meet Chris O'Connor in person at the Super Soldier Activation Conference, supersoldiercon.com. So that is the event that Super Soldier Talk, my nonprofit, is sponsoring. And so Chris is going to be there, of course, and we've got about 20 other super soldiers or SSP veterans, and we'll love to come out and try the Deems device. So thank you, Chris, for coming on here. And
Yeah,
also, if you want to check out some of the work I do, you can go to supersoldiertalk.com. Preferably subscribe to Rumble because, yeah, it's a long story. I'm going to go into it. But
yeah, yeah.
thank you
James, you
all.
do some amazing work.
I appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chris. Yeah.
Chris, with that being said, any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to say before we go today?
Well, like I said, I'm really grateful to be here, to be with you, and have this conversation. And I just love to everybody. I mean, I really appreciate. I work with some amazing people, and I meet so many amazing people, and I just have such a love for humanity, and thank you.
Man, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. We're sending you a lot of love and a lot of positive vibrations and keep up the great work. I know this is a labor of love. I know as an entrepreneur that there's hurdles and things that you overcome and things you go through to make that vision a reality. But thank you, man, for doing that. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing this technology. And thanks for being on the podcast. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon. Stay with me. I'm going to put it on pause. We'll finish up, say goodbye. And anybody out there, deemscompany.com, go to the website, get a hold of Chris, get this technology in your hands today, and subscribe and share. And we'll see you on the next video.
Bye, guys.